Hello, let me introduce my work about modeling the distribution of rock mass and native copper output by size classes during crushing. Historical and archaeological data indicate that Volyn native copper was well known to the ancient Slavs. This is evidenced by the name of place Smiths, Medici and other of the Old Slavic region meets copper. Tools from ancient settlements and ancient basalt mines in the basin of the Gorin River. The first through writing date on Volyn native copper appeared the Polish geological literature in the last 1920s. Also, some publications is already in 1887 already mentioned Volyn native copper scientists. Native copper of Ukraine belongs to several genetic types. One of them is a hypogenetic, magnetic and postmagnetic hydrothermal in Volyn region. In Volyn region. About methods. Method it was crushing carried out of vibration time jaws crushes with adjustable slits for unloading the crushed mass. After crushing each sample, the result mass was vibrated and divided into six control size classes. The weight of the sample as a whole was weight of each screening class and the weight content of copper of each of classes and in the sample as a whole were measured. About result, and our discussion. In this table, I show cumulative characteristic of copper recovery inside classes of crushed mass of lavobrekcia. Um, the nature of the extraction in this table suggests the positive of using a variant of the technology for separate enrichment and of lavobrekcia when the raw materials is divided into two streams, large and small classes, each of which is enriched separately. The decision on which size to accept as the boundary will depend on the chosen method of enrichment size Signs of enrichment equipment operate at a certain lower limit of the fit size. For example, grades plus 0.5 millimeters where copper recovery 85% are easily enriched by gravity methods. For example, jigging uh, in the eight in you can show in the end of my articles about this. Classes from 0.1 millimeters, the record in which the higher than 94% are well enriched of concentration table and coronal electrostatic separator. In the next table, average values for 10 samples of lavobrekcia. The average technological characteristic of raw materials were calculated for all 10 samples of crushed lavobrekcia. These tables show that all size classes contained a lot of copper, more than the 0.35% in the industrial necessary minimum, for example. That is, none of the classes can be recovered from the redistribution of copper concentration. For the development of the preparation technology, it is important to determine the calculated formulas that provide in particular the forecast of the copper yield depending on the crushing size. Previous studies have established experimental dependence of the yield, grade and recovery of copper on the size for 10 samples for crushed lavobrekcia. In this case, the grain size distribution of each initial samples was arbitrary and the samples were subject to crushing. Since after crushing, the output of the rock mass into each of the six places of sieving its vibrating screen was used was different for each of the 10 samples. Then, to obtain a generalized characteristic, it is necessary to establish the regulation of the each distribution of the rock mass output and the output of native Cooper from the size. The initial experimental data for determining these patterns are given in this table. For such studies, first of all, the assimilated about the subordination of the yield of the breed to the class to the normal distribution law is checked. To check compliance with the theoretical distribution law, the criteria of agreement of Pearson, Kolmogorov, Sharkov-Wilkie, and other. However, most of the criteria are suitable only for medium to low samples. In our case, the sample um, it was 10. These criteria are not applicable applicable. The studies carried out were based on the well-known method of analysis of small samples, according to which selective without bias and kurtosis can be used for a approximate test of the hypothesis of the normal distribution. In this table, you can see try 1, try 2, try 3, 4, 5, 6, and about every try you have results for a mass and a percent contained copper. In the next slide, you can see dependence of rock yield in the controlled size classes. The control size classes. If the absolute values of without bias and kurtosis do not exceed their standard deviations, that the hypothesis about the agreement of the sample with the normal distribution law is confirmed. Population result for the rate of the raw mass yield into classes from 1 to 6 result in this table. Figure 1 shows the dependence of the rock mass yield on these classes. Similar studies were carried out for the yield for copper in the single samples of each size class. First of all, the agreement with the normal distribution law was checked. The calculation results are shown in this table. Table from 3 to 7 shows that with the exception of class 105 millimeters agreement with the normal distribution law can be considered satisfactory. Dependence of the rock mass yield and yield Cooper on size class are shown the next figure. Oh, sorry, in this table, about depends of the output Cooper by size class cumulative. In this figure, we show dependence of the Cooper yield on the size class. It was found that the dependence of the Cooper yield from class with a high level or equation AB to the cubic parabola law. The calculate result from the output of Cooper in the side classes by the cumulative total infraction and percent percentages are given the table from 10 to this figure to this figure. Conclusion. About conclusion. The considered features are of distribution of the technical indicators on size classes allow defining the basis factor influences process of crushing. Regression of the regression dependencies of Cooper yield of the influence factory are obtained. Thus, the performance studies made it possible to establish that for lavobrekcia, the regulatory of the yield of crushed mass from the size class is parabolic. Um, the coefficient of determination is near 8%, and the distribution of the Cooper yield from the size classes of the cubic parabola near 5%. The indications higher value of the coefficients of determination indicate a high degree of acquaintance of this model. The high adequacy of this obtained model was confirmed, and the most promising size classes of rock for copper mining were identified. The regress dependence of copper yield in the influences factory are obtained. The obtained results and model will allow to develop a generalization model for the copper mining process and to implement this process with the rational and optimal parameters. Also, the received model will allow carrying out in estimation of productivity for a research site for processing of raw material and basalt quarries. That's all. Thank you.